What does it mean to be intelligent? What makes some people good at using knowledge, coming up with great ideas, and making great discoveries? We're going to look at some of these questions in this video. We say intelligence is the ability to use knowledge to reason, make decisions, make sense of events, solve problems, understand complex ideas, learn quickly, and adapt to environmental challenges. We might see intelligence as context dependent. Think about challenges in different environments. Someone considered intelligent in an industrialized urban area may struggle to survive in the jungle, for example. Thus, intelligence can be dependent on the context. This list is not exhaustive, and defining intelligence has been a struggle within the field of psychology for many years. A few questions that we ask about intelligence that we'll address in class are: how do we get from knowledge translated into intelligence? What's the connection there? And second, how much of intelligence is determined by our genes, and how much is determined by environmental factors? So this is that whole nature versus nurture debate that we keep revisiting. We have often measured intelligence using standardized tests. This is called the psychometric approach, which is using measurements in the study of psychology. There are two different types of intelligence tests. The first are achievement tests, and these we use to measure one's current level of skill or knowledge in a particular area. And the second are aptitude tests. These tests are used to predict what tasks or perhaps what job people will be good at in the future. So this is all about future prediction. So an example of an aptitude test would be the SAT. We use this to try to predict success in college. The GRE for graduate school admissions is also considered an aptitude test. And for an achievement test, we're looking at overall skill level. So an IQ test would be an example that tries to assess overall intellect, although we'll discuss whether or not this is a valid assessment of intellect. Over the years, we've seen many researchers struggle to develop a better intelligence test. But in order to better understand how we measure intelligence, we need to better define it. One psychologist, Alfred Binet, introduced the concept of mental age. This was looking at a child's intellectual ability and comparing it to that of same age peers. So taking the mean of the intellectual ability of people of the same age and comparing the individual to that mean. So someone who's 7 years old, and that would be their chronological age, but if they can do calculus and interpret Shakespeare, they might be considered to have a mental age of 16. And this concept of the mental age led to the intelligence quotient, or IQ. And so we can calculate IQ in its traditional form is the mental age divided by the chronological age times 100. So up here with our example, we would have our mental age 16 divided by our chronological age 7 times 100. That turns out to be about 229, which is a very high IQ. So we can see that the average IQ would be 100. So for the average individual, the mental age will match the chronological age. So mental age divided by chronological age will equal 1. We multiply that by 100 and we get 100, and that's our average IQ. These IQ scores form a normal distribution or a bell curve. We see that most fall close to the average of 100, and frequency drops off as we move away from the average. This equation for IQ breaks down with adults because our mental age stabilizes as we age, but our chronological age continues to increase. And so with adults, we measure each individual against the average adult, and so we sort of group all adults together. One question that we have to ask ourselves about this IQ test and other tests of intelligence is, are these tests reliable and are they valid? So if you remember from earlier in the course, we talked about this concept of reliability versus validity. Are the results stable over time? If they are, then the test is considered reliable. And do they measure what they claim to measure? Is the test measuring what it's supposed to? This would make it valid. So let's dig into this definition of intelligence. Spearman, an early psychologist, developed a model for intelligence that included a general intelligence factor. He called this the G factor. He found correlations between an individual's abilities in one area, such as math, with abilities in other areas, like writing. So when an individual had above average skills in math, they tended to have above average skills in writing. And so he said that this G factor is an overall intelligence factor, a general intelligence factor that contributes to performance on any intellectual task. So in a sense, this G factor, as it increases, causes these two other skills to increase, and so it's almost like a third variable, an underlying variable that's driving this observation that we see in the respective skills. However, he also describes specific skills that allow some individuals to perform better in a particular area. So Spearman incorporated these specific abilities, we call them S's, that can vary independently but are all affected by G. So here we're drawing our G in the center, and we've got our specific skills. Here's S1, maybe it's math. Here's S2, maybe it's writing. S3 could be problem solving. S4 could be drawing. They're all affected by G. So as G changes, this can affect all of the other specific abilities. But we can also see a specific ability, like the ability of drawing, to vary independently. So we might see someone that's particularly skilled at drawing, and this ability wouldn't be explained by an overall increase in the G factor. Since Spearman presented his model, other psychologists have come along and refined it and expanded it. Cattell in 1979 broke up G into two types of intelligence: fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is being able to understand abstract relationships and make logical conclusions without prior knowledge. So this involves things like processing information in new environments, reasoning, forming analogies, and thinking on your feet, so thinking quickly on the spot. Crystallized intelligence, on the other hand, involves knowledge acquired through experience. So this would include vocabulary, cultural information, and the ability to use this information to solve problems. So our crystallized intelligence is kind of like our long-term memory, and our fluid intelligence is sort of like our short-term or working memory. These two types of intelligence seem to be correlated, so when one is elevated, the other generally will be too. Why is this G factor so important, and what can we predict with it? So we'll look at these questions in class. More recently, we've expanded our view on intelligence, and since the 1980s, psychologists have looked at classifying multiple types of intelligence. For example, in 1999, Sternberg proposed 3 types of intelligence. He said that we have an analytical intelligence, which is what we measure on psychometric tests. We have creative intelligence, which is the ability to think in new and interesting ways. And we have practical intelligence, which is the ability to deal with everyday tasks. This might be like judging somebody's character or judging whether or not your car is going to fit into a tight parking space. This classification, however, has been disputed by some intelligence researchers, and we continue to work on how we define intelligence even to this day. Other intelligence researchers in more modern times have pushed for the importance of emotional intelligence, or EI. One model says that EI consists of 4 abilities. These are 1, the ability to manage one's own emotions; 2, the ability to use one's emotions to guide thoughts and actions; 3, the ability to recognize the emotions of others; and 4, the ability to understand emotional language. This concept of emotional intelligence seems to be correlated with the quality of one's social relationships. And we can see that EI can be predictive. EI can predict high school grades, for example. But some researchers say that EI stretches the definition of intelligence too far. And we see that it's often found to correlate with traditional measures of intelligence, like IQ and other measures of academic performance. So the world of defining and classifying intelligence is messy and difficult. We'll explore some of this messiness in class.